At this time, I will call the special board meeting to order. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Solis,
Present.
Segura,
Here.
Pike,
Here.
Hall,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Janney.
Here.
Per Government Code Section 54954.3, this is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any item that has been described in the notice for the special meeting before or during consideration of that item. Thank you for your cooperation.
Did you want to do the moment of silence and pledge?
Yes, we probably should do that, so let's stop, rewind, and go back to that item. We're going to have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. So who wants to lead? All right.
Okay, ready? Begin.
Now, per Government Code Section 54954.3, this is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any item that has been described in the notice for the special meeting before or during the consideration of that item. Thank you for your cooperation.
Reina Poveda,
Good morning, board members. My name is Reina Poveda, and I'm here to speak in favor of the board placing a bond on the November ballot that will modernize our schools and protect our children. I am a proud sound apprentice with the IBEW 569 Electrical Training Center. I live in Chula Vista, and I was born and raised in San Diego. My mom went to Sweetwater, and I graduated not too long ago from Bonita Vista. I am glad that the board recognizes the powerful positive impact that this bond will create for our community, not only in the sense of modernized, safer schools for our younger generations, but also in the good-paying local jobs and opportunities for more apprenticeships and career training for local parents and taxpayers that will result. Through the district's project labor agreement, you are ensuring that our schools are built with a trained and qualified workforce and that the bond monies have an added return to investment by creating local jobs. I hope to be one of the apprentices to install top-of-the-line technology and communication networks at our local schools. It will directly be affecting my family, as most of my younger cousins are currently attending schools in the Sweetwater School District. So I ask for you to vote yes for our schools, yes for our students, and yes for our local jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Lemon,
Tom Lemon, San Diego Building Trades, thank you. I don't think I have much to add. That was amazing. A young apprentice right out of high school into the electrical workers program because you have a labor agreement, because you guys are doing the right thing for our community by keeping the schools maintained and up to par the way they should be. I think this is amazing, and we're incredibly supportive, and we're looking forward to you guys passing this item today and then moving on and being supportive, getting it passed at the ballot in November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Krug,
Good morning. This is exciting. This is a great opportunity for us to continue to remodel our schools, get the security measures in, and create those opportunities for our young people from the area. But mostly in being able to do the deferred maintenance that we just have had one thing or another not being able to get done. And I love the protections that are put in terms of how the money is spent. So I'm really, really, really happy about this, and I'm glad to see it going on the ballot, or I'm hoping it will be placed on the ballot, and I'm going to help get it passed if it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudia Torres,
Good morning. I'm a parent from Sweetwater. I have 3 daughters. It's my first time here, and I'm concerned a little bit this bond because what I've heard, the district hasn't been very accountable with other bonds placed in the past, and what I see, it's from the 12 years I have been living here. There's no new schools for us, either middle schools or high schools. I know you're going to say the bonds is for that, but what has been happening all these years, and our schools are very crowded, and it's not a safe place for our kids right now. So my question is, how can we get this bond to, and this new bond to be accountable for us as citizens? How can we be sure that this bond is going to be utilized for what you're telling us to be is going to be used? Because what I've heard that the money, the past bond you asked for, it wasn't very well used. So I'm not really aware of what has happened before, but I just want to make sure this one is going to be used for whatever you're asking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich?
Never thought I'd be here. Good morning, President Hall, members of the board, Superintendent Janney. There is a long, thoughtful discussion amongst all CBOC members, where I'm the chair, regarding the proposal to go forward with the November 18th bond measure at our last CBOC meeting. The CBOC weighed all options. There was a recognition there's need for these facilities, and we're pleased with the progress under the leadership of Dr. Janney and Dr. Aguirre. There was also a message: we need a strong CBOC, which I heard from the audience just now, who will hold the district accountable. The final outcome of our meeting, in essence, was the Sweetwater CBOC supports the bond measure as long as there's sufficient language in the measure that states the district's intent to have an open, fair, qualification-based selection process for CBOC members, independent panel being the result. Based upon the items before you today, I am pleased, and believe me, I am pleased to say the CBOC is in support of the bond measure. The standalone resolution, which clearly states the intent to have one CBOC, retain its existing members in assurance that the selection process would continue in a fair and impartial manner, is a stroke of genius, and I want to thank all the people that were involved in putting that together. Accountability, which I also heard of again, is vitally important to the residents. We will continue to report to the public on what we see as good and what areas that would need improvement. So it's not going to change in that regard. Can't emphasize this enough. We really have come a long way. There's always room for process changes and mid-course corrections. Let us not lose sight the fact those refurbished or new facilities were, and this is really important, they result in better facilities for better education. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. First and foremost, see it in the audience when those students stop me, the chair, and I'm sitting there. They love the HVAC. That wouldn't have happened under the old regime where you build a high school, $60 million, and half of the classrooms don't have air conditioning. That will not, with the system that's in place now, that will not occur again. We should commend again the district for their excellent work on the CBOC resolution so we can move forward positively. Kudos to Dr. Janney and Dr. Aguirre, and I, from a personal, this is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right. We are now on item C1, adopt resolution number 4567, ordering a school bond election on November 6, 2018, and authorizing necessary actions in connection therewith. Superintendent Janney?
Thank you, President Hall. Welcome, everyone, to our special board meeting. Today's meeting wouldn't be the same if I didn't have some kind of message, right? Got to have a message. Got to start with a message. Today's meeting has only one topic, and that is a proposal to place a general obligation bond on the November ballot. So how did we get here? I really want to tell the story a little bit. Today is the next big step in a process that really began a few years ago. This community overwhelmingly supported a new direction for the district, and that meant a new Board of Trustees, who from the beginning of their tenure and of their campaigns even, emphasized putting the focus back on students. So putting students first is more than a campaign slogan and even a t-shirt. It's a way we do our work in Sweetwater. And early in their tenure, our Board of Trustees then had to choose a new superintendent. And my charge has been to make putting students first a reality. And we started with restructuring our organization and ensuring that all educators are also committed to making students a priority. This has involved, as you know, revising our LCAP goals, creating a new mission and belief statements that are student-centered and focusing on each student. And so once we got those structures in place, it became about ensuring this work is being done day to day, from teaching and learning to culture and equity to managing facilities and operations. And so as part of the Sweetwater story, we really needed to look at areas of the district that were ignored or neglected or just not done well. And there were definitely areas out there that needed to be addressed. We all know that. So we've been working for the past 3 years to make it right or to make it better. And that means equity in all areas of our district for each student. And that equity work, although, doesn't only apply to what happens on campuses and in classrooms, but really also on the actual classrooms and campuses. And so what has that work looked like over the past 3 years? It's no secret that our aging facilities, we have aging facilities with significant needs. We know that. We looked at how we financed all of our facility work. We revisited more than 20 years of CFDs, of more than 20 CFDs, Community Facilities Districts information. It took us 2 years to reconcile all of the invoices spent on CFD funds. From that work, we created a new model called the Capital Improvement Program Status Report that we present to the board and the public and the CBOC every month at a board meeting and at CBOC meetings. It's updated monthly. We've also taken a look at previous bonds. We've closed out Prop BB, and we explored how can we access Prop O funds in light of the assessment value. So in the past 2 years, we have been able to access over $100 million of Prop O funds, which has enabled us to complete a variety of projects. The most significant, Mr. Marinovich mentioned, has been our HVAC project, where every classroom and every learning space in the district has air conditioning and heating. That's right. And we can say, especially this past week with the heat, that our students and staff are grateful that that's happened, that the board has, not only guided us but supported us in that decision. So since 2015, we've had a number of public discussions. Actually, we went back and we've looked at, there have been almost 30 agenda items in the past 2 years, or since 2015, 2.5 years, during board meetings that have specifically addressed the feasibility of a bond proposal because of our aging facilities. Staff at the time, back in 2016, felt like we weren't ready yet because we believed we needed to do a more thorough assessment of facility needs and to get more input from the community and to determine the projects that we could complete with our current funding mechanisms. And so the board has made it very clear to us since they've been here that the community input is vital to this process. And so in 2015, And since 2015 and again in 2018, we've gone out to school sites, school communities, school staff to get their input on their needs. Our planning and construction department has updated all facilities master plans based upon that input. Like Mr. Marinovich said, the CBOCs has also been a vital part of addressing facility needs and representing the community stakeholders' accountability concerns. And they meet monthly, as we know. Mr. Marinovich reports monthly, and they even actually meet at school sites so they can actually see what's happening and they help to provide that oversight, and they give us other general comments about facility needs, whether it's regarding Prop O or not. We are not lacking for input, I guess is what I'm saying. We conferred with our financial advisor and our bond counsel several times since 2016 before we conducted an actual bond feasibility study in March of 2018. We then followed up with a secondary tracker in early summer to determine whether to firmly recommend from the staff a bond proposal for November. So then on July 9th, we actually brought forward a first read of this bond proposal to get final input from the community and the Board of Trustees. These are all just pieces of this puzzle that leads us to today. And throughout all of this process, our philosophy and practice has been to keep our doors open, and if anyone, student, staff, parent, community member, media, has concerns or questions, we've done our best to meet and address those questions with the goal of being open and transparent. In fact, it is not uncommon that our Board of Trustees has not acted on a board item because they or a public member has had more questions about that. So we've pulled those items several times. So we just want everyone to know that we the staff could not do our work without the support of this board and their guidance. But Sweetwater has, at least for the past 3 years, is and will continue to do our work differently. And if the Board of Trustees approves this recommendation today, regardless of the outcome in November, our work will always be to provide the best possible learning environment for each student in Sweetwater. And we will use every possible way to make sure that happens. So today, we can confidently say that we are ready to bring this proposal to the voters of the Sweetwater Union High School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Janney. Dr. Aguirre, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you, President Hall. Thank you, trustees, and Dr. Janney. As you heard from Dr. Janney, she really shared our big picture, the journey we've been through over the last years, really, and how we arrived at where we are. I'm here to point out more of the details in terms of what has changed between the first reading and today to make sure it's already pointed out in the item, but there's a couple of changes, so I just want to make sure I am able to share those out. So our first reading occurred on Monday, July 9th, and based on the feedback that we received and further clarification we've obtained, in part based on items such as changes to that law we referenced, the AB 195, here are some of the changes that happened between the first reading and this morning. So in our 75-word ballot designation, this was modified to include a title, as well as identifying the tax rate as being 2 cents per $100. In the past, there had been different considerations around whether it was 2 cents per $100 or 3 cents per $100. At this point, we are bringing forward a 2 cent per $100 recommendation. The overall amount of the bond was also reduced, again, partly informed by the various feedback and input we received. At the first reading, that was $494 million. At this point in time, it is $403 million. So that reflects a reduction as well, again, based on multiple pieces of information. I do want to highlight one change from the language that's currently up on the screen, which we are recommending a revision. And again, it's part of the overall AB 195 clarification that's coming. And that is specific to the figures that are included in the language. Currently, as you may see, there's a $30 million annually over 40 years. Our recommendation is that that be changed to $26 million over the course of 30 years. So it's just changing the two figures from 30 million to 26 million, and from 40 years to 30 years. And again, this has been a somewhat dynamic environment we've been in, given the changes that we're seeing for the first time in this cycle. Other changes from the first reading to this point are indicated in the board item analysis, and they include changes to the project list, including to schools such as Eastlake Middle, Montgomery Middle, National City Middle, and we included language regarding adult schools and alternative school sites. At this point, we also took action that is separate and apart from this agenda item, and you'll see those in agenda item C2. But in essence, it's to support the ongoing commitment that we have to transparency and accountability. And so based on that, we developed a separate resolution to support that. So again, those are separate agenda items. But I did want to highlight the changes that occurred between the first reading, which occurred on July 9th, and this morning's board meeting. So with that, I conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other presentations or comments around this resolution? Anyone have questions? Mr. Tarantino?
First of all, thank you, Dr. Janney, for that history walk in terms of where we are today. 2 years ago, I wasn't convinced that we were ready for a bond. I think that we were haunted by the past, and staff needed more time to correct what was happening in terms of the management of past bonds. And I was glad to hear that staff came with that recommendation that they weren't ready. I think that said an awful lot about our relationship as a board with the staff, that they could trust us to be honest and make a recommendation that they felt was in the best interest of the district. We've come a long way, like Dr. Janney said, in 3 years. We really have. And I know that there are a lot of individuals, I've received a lot of phone calls the last few days in terms of individuals who still have a problem trusting us in terms of doing the right thing and making the decisions in the best interest of kids. And based on the history walk that Dr. Janney took us through, I don't know what else we could do to prove that we are a different governance team, that we are a different organization, that we are willing to put students first. I just don't know what it'll take. I think we've done everything that that we can. Doesn't mean that it's perfect, no, but we still are working towards that. So I just needed to say that in terms of the area in which I represent, because I know that there's a lot of pushback from Area 3 in terms of another tax on top of Mello-Roos. It affects me as well, so it's not like I'm making decisions for everybody else and I'm not included. But I believe in public education. I believe that the motivation for this bond is correct, it's just, it's the right thing to do. And as a board, we've always been guided by it's the right thing to do. And I think our actions prove that. So I'll stop pontificating, but I felt that I needed to say that. So another thing, I'd like to thank staff for including the recommendations that were brought forward not only by the board but by the community in terms of the additions that Dr. Gary alluded to. Again, another sign that it is a different Sweetwater. We do listen. We absolutely do. And whenever possible, we include those recommendations in the actions that we take. We take public comment very seriously. I believe that. And I think my colleagues, I'm not going to speak for them, but I think that they believe that too. So I just want to thank you for all of the changes and bringing this forward. And I think there's a lot of safeguards in here. We are not going to spend money on salaries or pensions. That we do have a clear idea, not only in Exhibit A, in terms of what we're able to do with this money, but also with the individual school sites. Staff has done a very good job of putting the recommendations that have been brought forward from our master facility plan meetings at all of the school sites. And I think that, I'm looking at the schools in Area 3, and all of the recommendations that are under the headings of those schools were brought forward by parents and students and community members. So I'm pleased to see that, that's reflected in the document. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Well, thank you. Mr. Solis?
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I want to reiterate what my colleague, Mr. Tarantino said. I know as a district we needed a bond 4 years ago to fix all the schools that needed fixing. But as we were here, as we started, I know staff wasn't ready, and we wanted to make sure the public was on board with us. Okay, so I know I was one of those that said, no, let's stop, let's wait, let's make sure that we're transparent about this bond, because we truly want it for our students. I taught at a school for 10 years without air conditioning, and it's tough. It is tough. It's hard. It's hard for the kids. It's hard for the teachers. So I appreciate the staff working hard and getting HVAC for all of the students in all the classrooms. So I think we have shown as a board that we are open to public comment, and we are open to listening to see what's going on with our students and with all the facilities. So we want to make sure that these facilities are up and running, and all our kids deserve good facilities. These kids are our future, and if we don't give them what they need now, then it's going to be worse off for all of us in the future. So I want to thank the board, the staff, the CBOC for putting our feet to the fire and always being there. I know it's been crazy at times, but I think we all need that, and we all know that the direction that we're all headed is the same one as for our students, and thank you guys for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kevin?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes, I just wanted to thank the staff. I know you guys have been working on this for like 2 years, and I can look around the room, and when I first sat here, there's completely different faces out there now. And that's part of the area that Dr. Janning adjusted this district because we needed it. Now we have new faces, we have new people, we have people that are dedicated to accomplishing the things that I think the staff, the people, everybody wants. I see the changes from the air conditioning to the new football field at Hilltop. Thank you very much. But all of it, it's just a process, and each school is getting its turn, and that's, I think, what we wanted, equity within the schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Segura?
Yeah, so I'm just going to make a statement. In the spirit of my continuing efforts in putting students first and to ensure total focus remains on the students, I'm not going to weigh in on this resolution, and I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Segura. We appreciate your stand on that. Thank you. I also would like to say that I am very thankful for the leadership at this district. First of all, for the people that have been in the district way before, for years, have always been doing the right thing by students, regardless of the leadership at that time, but have really been steadfast on the side of students and public education. I'm very thankful for our superintendent, but I'm especially thankful for our board. We are very like-minded in putting students first. It's really not about us. I think if you're hearing people say that, it's like a record that skips and it won't get off that skip. It just keeps repeating. It's really, and that's likely because they were very hurt in the past. And we've done everything we can. We go out and we meet with people, and we're at the schools, and we're listening to the public, and we go to the CBOC meetings when we can. I mean, we're trying to really be a part of the change that will bring equity and excellence across the district, because many felt it wasn't that way before. But we also stood witnesses to the fact it wasn't that way before. So I want to thank this administration, Dr. Aguirre, who has worked extremely hard. His staff are excellent at what they do. They have, I mean, the fact that we requested and they did a full audit and accountability on the CFD funds, that was extremely laborious. It took months, actually more than a year. That was something no other board or district has ever done, I'm sure. And we did it. They followed it. They followed it through with excellence and clarity and set up. It was the guiding light for making a lot of changes on accountability. We have very much created transparency on what's going on in the district, inclusion in our decision making, because we are all better together, right, Dr. Janney? And I value each one of our public members, our staff that is way beyond excellent, and those that would stand up and say, yeah, it's different, and repeat that conversation about what's right with Sweetwater, because many things have changed and we are extremely different from the past. So I'm thankful for that. I also think that this is very much needed in order to do the continued work that needs to be done. Because as you all know, in your neighborhoods, schools need a lot of work, and they need to be maintained, and some of them need to be built. But without funding, none of it can happen. And I think that we've demonstrated our ability to be good stewards over the funding and what happens within the district. We're providing labor, we've got labor that is really doing good work, not shoddy work, when they do the work at our schools. That's been demonstrated. We couldn't say that about it when we first came on board. And I don't mean that we have charge over the labor. What I'm saying is that the leadership is ensuring that we have standards that are met, and those standards are being met. And so for the safety and health of our students, we know that we need to have some of the very things that are mentioned in the project list, to be security systems for our schools, to make our schools 21st century learning centers. And not every school has that kind of infrastructure and is in sore need of it, because every student should feel good about going to school and feel that they are safe and that they're provided the same opportunities, no matter their zip code. I've heard that say before. So I want to thank the staff. I want to thank Dr. Aguirre and your work. And I want to thank this board for making sure we do listen, and that no matter what you hear, we really do listen, and we haven't created a new anything new in these resolutions. We already do all those things that are talked about. We already have a CBOC that we listen to and that is very active, and we already have a process and have been utilizing that process every year to name the board or the members of that bond oversight committee. So these are good things to include on this board item, and I'm in support of it. So I think clearly we are doing well. So let's call for the vote. Do I have a motion to approve item C1?
Move to
I'll
approve
second.
C1.
I have a motion by Solis and a second by Pike. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Abstain?
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes?
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 abstention.
And now for item C2, adopt resolution number 4574, establishing policy. Thank you. Establishing policy and regulations relative to a Citizens Oversight Committee for general obligation bonds to be issued under a November 2018 bond election. Do I have any speakers?
No, Madam President.
All right. Are there any questions on this from the board? Any comments? Mr. Tarantino? Thank you.
I'd like to thank the CBOC for coming forward and voicing their concern about perhaps not necessarily our governance team changing the rules of the game in terms of the CBOC, but maybe future governance teams. And so again, as a rhetorical question, I don't expect an answer, but I often think at what point when we disagree, will the disagreement be seen as just a disagreement and not an attempt to usurp or sideline or silence the CBOC? I think that we value as a government, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think our actions have proven that we value a CBOC that is independent and represents the taxpayers and members of the community. I think that, we do listen. Do we always agree? No. And I think that's something that, is going to happen. But as long as there's the respect between our two groups, then we can agree to disagree and move forward. So I just, again, in my view, another visual that we are different and that we are committed to working together with the CBOC, and we value their expertise individually and collectively and their input. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Thank you. So yes, I agree. I think the conversations have to be around what really happens and not a perception, so that we can move forward and do that, do each of our roles in the proper way and inform the public about what really matters. Otherwise, the conversations kind of get lost and people start to tune out because they're not hearing anything new. So one of the things that I would like to say is that when we do communicate, and part of that communication does come from the CBOC, that when we approve these measures to have a bond for $500 million or thereabouts, we don't get that money right away, because I think that's one of the confusing things about any construction measure on a ballot. People go, well, they got $500 million. Why aren't we seeing anything done at our schools? Why isn't our school changed? Or why aren't we getting a new school? Or why? Because it doesn't really work like that. It's an authorization, but it takes a lot of time and sometimes many years, depending on the economy. It will take years for us to raise that kind of money. But with good financial advisors like Mr. Bauer here in the audience, thank you for being here, we will be able to raise that money over the years. And as we do, we will address these projects. So when you see things like, well, that list, they promised us doing something like that on the last bond, when the Bond Oversight Committee is key in making sure that they have a conversation about why it didn't get done under Prop O or Prop BB, because there wasn't enough money raised. And I think that's part of their role in making sure that they're communicating that to their members as well as the community, that, you know, for the money we raised, we're doing the right thing or we're not doing the right thing. But I think so far what you've seen and in the comments, and I thank the Bond Oversight Chair for being here, Mr. Marinovich, and for bringing your team's way in on all of this, that they support it. That means a lot. So we really appreciate it. And now I'll call for a vote on item C2. Do I have a
Move to adopt resolution
motion?
4574.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt 4574 and a motion by Solis, second by Segura. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, now, item C3. Report on appropriate communications regarding the school bond election process. So who is going to, anybody going to speak? Dr. Jen? Or
That'd be me.
Our General Counsel, Jennifer Carpuccia.
hello. Not that I need a microphone. Now that the board has taken action to place this bond on the 2018 ballot, as revised by Dr. Aguirre from the materials you were presented, the district, as staff, wants to make sure we share some of the do's and don'ts for communicating with the bond or related to the bond. And while that's absolutely something that could just be done in an email and will be done in an email after this meeting is over, we wanted, for transparency's sake, the ability to share with you what we will be sharing with staff.
No, you can't do that. Oh, you can go up to the podium.
I'll go-
Yeah, thank you. Now, if it starts ringing, then it's something you're wearing.
Then you just know I have an electric personality.
Yes.
So
it.
while we absolutely have had the ability just to send this out, we thought that it was important, for transparency's sake, to ensure that our public heard exactly what we were telling you and exactly what we were telling staff about the roles and responsibilities. So what you will see in front of you is two memos, and they have been placed or will be placed on the back table. One is a memo that will be sent out to staff this afternoon that talks about the unique role that school staff play when a bond election is there. And a second is directed directly to you as board members because there are a couple of unique things about your role. So the first and the key points that you'll see on that memo is that no district resources can be used to advocate for this measure, and no advocacy may occur by district employees on district time. And we mean that pretty broadly. So that means a district cell phone for the five of you that have them, and a couple of us. That means no district computers. That means no district emails, and that means district time as a whole when you are on campus working. And so I think that is a key point, and we're going to make some distinctions for you as board members. What does that mean? No district staff, and this is, I think, a key point for us, and we want to say it we said it boldly on that form. No district staff is required to participate in supporting or opposing this bond measure. No one's going to be asked to make calls or give money, and if they are, we have asked in that memo that they immediately go to Dr. Janney. And additionally, we've listed the number for the FPPC to make sure that they could call and report us there. Because that may have been a way, but that isn't our way now.
Can you please say what the FPPC
Sorry,
is?
the Fair Political Practices Commission.
Thank you.
So that said, while no one can be required to, that does not mean that we cannot, as staff, on our own times, advocate for the bond. District resources also have a unique way that they can be utilized. We may only, as a district, present informational material about this bond. What does that mean? Just the facts, ma'am, in that sense? That means what's listed on that bond list that you just passed, the pros and the cons of it. So this is what we've listed. What could happen if this bond isn't passed, how would facilities be paid for? And on the opposite side, what does that mean for the taxpayer for this bond passing? What is the tax rate? What is that information, similar to what was in the 75 ward ballot, but mentioning that. So it really is informational, and we want to ensure that our staff and principals who are likely to get questions about that know that, and know that resources from an informational basis only will be provided through our communication office, so that it does just give those facts. So I think that is a big place for us. Additionally, employees can advocate for the bond, just as you as board members individually can. They can fundraise, but they can't do it on work time, and they can't use district resources. And we wanted to make sure they're very clear of that, whether that's a district email or that's district time. For you as a board member, that means if you are being asked in your role as a board member, what is that? So you're attending a community function in your role as a board member. You're meeting with a city council in that role. You're attending a school event or a VAPA performance, like the Adams family at Mar Vista High School, for example. If you're being asked there, you're not advocating on behalf of the bond. Questions that are presented to you may be answered in a factual basis only. And the last piece is, if we were to allow district facilities to be used, we have a right legally to allow district facilities to be used for people advocating for the bond. We would have to provide equal time. We think, for a clarity perspective, we just don't want to go there. So we are going to say district facilities, like a district resource, may not be used in supporting or opposing this bond measure. So as board members collectively, in your role here, there are 2 times that you have the right to advocate or oppose a bond measure. First, the board may collectively decide to support or oppose this bond by way of a resolution or action. That is something that you have the right, we can bring forward as a resolution to take a position. And second, the Education Code allows the board to write a ballot statement in support or opposition of the bond. And the reasons behind that is that you as a legislative body have been charged and elected by our community to legislate what is in the best interests of the districts and its students. And just like you take positions as a board on other legislative matters or on other initiatives, you have a right to do so in this case. If you decide the need to upgrade facilities is something that's in our best interest, then that is a statement or action is allowable. Further, the law has determined that you talking is not actually a use of a district resource. And so that is a place where having that conversation or communication as you're asking questions between now and the election on M1s and M2s, that you have the ability to ask those questions and how it might impact that. So that I think is the difference for us. So that really is the larger piece. As it relates to what you may and you may not advocate for. You as individual board members, when asked questions in the supermarket, if you are answering, me as a parent, I believe this bond is good or is bad, that is a different place than saying, me as vice president of this board. If you are asked a question in your capacity as a board, remaining factual, sitting at a back-to-school night, at a back-to-school table that only has the informational materials that communications has put out that are factually based as to that school site, is absolutely appropriate. Advocating your position is not. So that's generally the bigger picture. Are there any other questions as it relates to the legalities of communicating this bond measure you have about yourself, staff members, or outside entities?
All right. So are you just, I was just going to speak. So you're done with your presentation?
I am done
All
with
right.
my presentation.
So now we have questions from the board. Mr. Solis.
As a question with regards to advocating, if a parent, say we're at the event at VAPA, and a parent is asking me questions, I'm being factual. And then if they ask me directly, so are you in support or so? How would that?
Again, I think you as an individual have the right to take a position, and as long as you are clearly stating what that position is, we would prefer you, even in that situation, stay at the factual place and say, there are many reasons that are in support of the bond. I can provide you the name if you'd like to get more information. I think that is the other question. You may get asked, someone handing you a donation, or how do I pick up a street sign. You can give the name or the email address of someone that could give them that information, but as much as possible, when you are actually on a district property or at a district event, we would prefer you stay factual. If in fact at the next board meeting or in the near future this board takes a support position, you may factually say on June whatever or July whatever, our board, including myself, voted to support this bond. That is a factual statement, and as long as you don't put a comma, and we'd sure like you to do it too, then it is not a violation or it is not advocacy. So that would be a factual statement. But at the moment, this board and you have not taken that position.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question on this? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. So, I have a question for Dr. Janney, I suppose. When will we hear about how we're going to, about the communication and the actual campaign or whatever it is, or to do a resolution? When would those steps occur?
So like Ms. Carbuccia said earlier, we can email us out this afternoon. I'll send it out with my message as a result of the board meeting, special board meeting results. And then from there, we'll be getting some information. If the board chooses to put a resolution on at the next board meeting, which is August 13th, then you'll let me know, and we'll put a resolution on that says that you're in support of.
Okay. Mr. Solis.
I guess with that being said, I think would it be appropriate for if I wanted to bring a resolution next meeting, would it be appropriate to do it now, to ask the chair and the superintendent to bring a resolution in support of this bond?
Yeah. Are you answering verbally a yes?
From this
General
wonderful
Counsel
microphone,
Carbuccia?
yes, I
Yes,
am saying
thank you.
that.
Thank you.
I would like to do that.
All right, Mr. Solis.
Thank you.
I agree with that. All right, so we'll ask for that, and that will next steps.
So the next step is we'll confer with council and our team, and we will be submitting the bond package over to the registrar of voters so that then they can begin their review process. Again, our deadline to submit our information, our resolution to them is August 10th. That's part of the reason why there's some time considerations. So again, we will be preparing that for submission to the registrar of voters now that this action has taken place. And that's our next step as a district.
So this is not an action item, right? This is an information item. So I do have one question, and you talked about a resolution, and then you talked about a ballot statement. So would that be accompanying the documents that would be filed on August 10th, or is that separate?
No, that is absolutely something that can be done separately. And it is the one place in which we're able to make an advocacy point.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that's it then. I appreciate everyone's participation at this meeting today. We appreciate the public taking the time to come here, the CBOC, other public members that spoke, and those of you in the professional realm of bonds. So thank you all, and the meeting is now adjourned.